Since its debut in 1989, The Simpsons has broadcast over 600 episodes, won more than 24 Emmys and a Peabody Award, and sold millions of dollars worth of merchandise. It's a pop culture juggernaut, which means that there's a small fortune of lore and behind-the-scenes trivia out there about Springfield's first family. Pretty much the only adult Bart Simpson actually respects is kids' TV show host Krusty the Clown. When Matt Groening and his writing staff were developing the show early on, however, someone floated the concept that Krusty and Homer were actually going to be the same person. As Groening told Entertainment Weekly, the original idea behind Krusty the Clown was that he was Homer in disguise, but Homer still couldn't get any respect from his son, who worshipped Krusty. Unfortunately, it became too complicated a plot detail to work out once the show was really getting off the ground, so the idea was abandoned. But vestiges of the arc remain. Krusty and Homer have an almost identical character design. Krusty just has different hair and clown paint, and they're both voiced by the same actor. Later on, the 6th-season episode Homie the Clown references the original idea and features Homer becoming a Krusty the Clown impersonator.
Wow! I'm sorry I doubted you before, Dad.
If there has to be a bastardized version of Krusty, I'm glad it's you.
The Simpsons' rivalry with President George H.W. Bush goes back a lot further than the neighborhood dispute which erupts in 1996's Too Bad Neighbours. In a 1990 interview with People, then First Lady Barbara Bush dismissed the show, saying, "It was the dumbest thing I had ever seen." In response, the show's writers, under the guise of Marge Simpson, sent Mrs. Bush a letter defending the show. Marge wrote, "I recently read your criticism of my family. I was deeply hurt. Heaven knows we're far from perfect, and if truth be known, maybe just a wee bit short of normal. But as Dr. Seuss says, a person is a person." Barbara apologized, but things didn't end there. Early in his 1992 re-election campaign, President Bush told the Convention of National Religious Broadcasters,
"We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons."
A subsequent episode of The Simpsons featured the family watching a clip of Bush's speech.
Huh?
Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too.
In the Season 3 episode Stark Raving Dad, Homer is mistakenly sent to a psychiatric institution where he's befriended by a hulking, balding patient named Leon who identifies himself as Michael Jackson. He certainly had the voice of Michael Jackson because the real king of pop lent his voice to the character.
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Michael Jackson from the Jacksons.
I'm Homer Simpson from The Simpsons.
In the credits, however, he was billed under the name John J. Smith. So how did a relatively new TV series land the biggest pop star in the world? Jackson simply phoned up and asked. A fan of the show, Jackson at first wanted to play himself, but eventually went with the writers when they conceived the character of Leon. The Simpsons is one of the few successful long-running TV shows to never have generated a spin-off, but it's not for lack of trying. In 1994, Matt Groening wrote a script for a new series that found Krusty the Clown getting his own talk show and moving to Los Angeles. But it wasn't going to be a cartoon. Groening wanted it to be a live-action series, with Krusty's voice actor Dan Castellaneta reprising his role in the flesh. Eventually, Groening accepted it had to take the form of an animated series instead because this whole thing was just too expensive to pull off in real life. Unfortunately, the animated show never saw the light of day either after negotiations between Groening and Fox stalled. But creativity prevailed. Groening's next project was a little show about Earth in the year 3000. In late 1988, when The Simpsons was still just a feature on The Tracy Ullman Show, producers made a deal with Butterfinger for a commercial featuring Bart Simpson. The script called for Bart to compare lunches with a friend at school, so Simpsons staff filed through a series of drawings that Groening had done for an ultimately unproduced NBC Saturday morning cartoon set in a grade school. The one they picked to use as Bart's foil was an especially nerdy-looking kid who remained unnamed in the commercial. He needed a name, however, if he was to become part of The Simpsons proper.
Is this the untimely end of Milhouse?
But Milhouse is my name.
But I thought I was the only one.
A pain I know all too well.
Why is he named Milhouse? According to Groening, "I named him Milhouse because I thought that was the most unfortunate name I could think of for a kid."
This is great! And all I've done is enter my name! Thrill House!
The episode The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show parodied the once common TV practice of shows bringing in a cooler, younger, or out-of-this-world character to freshen things up. On The Simpsons, it's Bart's beloved Itchy and Scratchy cartoon, which adds Poochie, a sunglasses-wearing, rapping surfer voiced by Homer. Poochie ends up a total flop, with practically everyone but Homer seeing right through the cheap ratings ploy. The premise is paralleled in the Simpsons household, which suddenly includes a never-before-seen sunglasses-wearing dude named Roy, who at the end of the episode moves out.
Good news, everybody. I'm moving into my own apartment with 2 sexy ladies.
Well, then I guess this is goodbye, Roy.
Fox had recently tried to do the same thing to The Simpsons. Before the 8th season began, Fox executives asked then showrunners Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein to add a new, fresh face to The Simpsons family. The writers gave them Roy and Poochie instead. As for Poochie, well, he had the greatest send-off ever.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.